Hi, my name is Dr. Panicott, and I'm a board certified pediatrician. I'm also a pediatric hospitalist, which means I take care of babies, children, and young adults exclusively within the hospital. I wanted to come on today to talk about what's been going on in our country with the protests against racism. Undoubtedly, your children may have questions about what's going on, as it can be quite confusing. Or if they're even younger, you yourself may be wondering, how can I start to talk about these topics with your little ones? So, what I want to do is come on and give you some tips that are appropriate for your children at each developmental stage of how you can start to broach the topic of racism and what's been going on. Our country has been going through a really scary and tough time. First, of course, starting with the coronavirus pandemic, and now with the other pandemic, racism, which has fortunately has been plaguing this country for centuries. With the recent deaths of Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and George Floyd, those murders have really brought to the surface the unfortunate legacy of injustice and racism within this country. One of the things that we can do to make things better going forward is to really educate ourselves, educate our children on what's going on and what are the steps that we can do to make our society a better place. For talking about racism and the protests with your children, it can be daunting and downright scary and intimidating to bring up these topics with your children. But as a pediatrician, I really do think it's important that we be honest and straightforward with our kids, and that we don't shy away from the topic. We let them know it's okay for them to come to you and talk about topics that are sensitive. So, first, let's start with toddlers. The research shows that babies at around the age of 6 months can start to show preferences for different skin color. Um, Kids between the ages of 2 to 4 can start to internalize racial bias. And by the age of 12, studies show that many children are sort of set in whatever their worldview regarding race is going to be. So, bottom line is that it's never too early to start the conversation. For our toddlers, this is a great time to really expose them to a diverse array of books, a diverse array of shows, and toys to let them see other images that are different from their own and enjoy watching those images, playing with those images. It's important to expose them to other opinions and other children that don't necessarily look like them or anyone else in their family. Also, for our toddlers, reading books that are age appropriate can really be helpful to start that dialogue with children at that age. And I'll be leaving some recommendations in a couple of upcoming posts about books that you can read at bedtime with your toddlers. Another thing at this age that they can really start to understand is the concept of fairness. So, just like you're teaching your toddlers to say please and thank you and to wait their turn, this is another good time to teach them about the concept of being fair and treating everyone equally, no matter what they look like. Now, let's move on to our elementary age children. This is the time where they're kind of getting their first taste of independence. They are heading off to school and they're making independent friendships. And so this is the time where they might start to verbalize things a little bit more. So, it's really important to encourage your children to have a diverse group of friends. So if the school that they attend is not particularly diverse, trying to find them some activities that they can do outside of school is a little bit difficult now because of coronavirus, but in general, finding them that activities that they can do where they can interact with children from different areas, I think is really important to expose them to that. Now that your children are a little bit more verbal about differences, they might comment on that person has strange hair, or their skin looks a certain way, or their eyes might look a little bit different. This is the time to really don't shush them, but say, well, yes, that person does have a different XYZ, but it's beautiful even if it's different from the way you and I look. It's really not the best idea. It's not a good idea to say, we don't see color, because that's simply not true. Everyone sees color. So really focus on, instead of that message, focus on saying, we all, to teach our children how to celebrate the differences that they see, and to celebrate what makes us all unique. We all come with different cultures and different backgrounds, and that's really the strength of America. So teaching your children to focus on that is way more significant and going to be more powerful than teaching I don't see color, when we know that we all do see color. For our middle school kids, this is where they're really starting to get more independent in their thought process. They're learning more about history within school. And so these are, your children likely may have cell phones at this age. And so there's a lot more that they're able to exchange among their peer groups, and a lot more that they can see of the world that you may not be privy to. This is really a good time to open up the conversation to your middle schoolers and kind of let them lead the conversation. So you might start off by saying, what do you know about what's happening, or how do you feel? Have your classmates or any of your friends been talking about what's going on? And using those questions to sort of prompt the conversation to get things going. Your child might say, well, I saw on YouTube or someone shared on TikTok. Why don't you ask them, I haven't seen that. Can you show me that video? Can you show me that short video on TikTok? It's important to know what your children are viewing, because it's going to be hard to kind of have that full conversation without knowing what they're being exposed to. As pediatricians in general, we always say, try your best to limit screen time. That's, of course, been difficult because of coronavirus, and schooling has been all online. But when it comes to non-school social media, especially during these times, it's really important to kind of be aware of what your children are viewing and what's happening, because there's so much being put out there right now. And now let's talk about your high schoolers. This is sort of the last stop before they really are becoming adults with the right to vote at the age of 18, and really being becoming way more independent. They're really forming their own ideas. They're forming their own social groups. At this age, they really do have the ability to critically think about what's happening and to sort of form their own opinions. And so it's really important as parents to foster that independence and to really encourage them to read, credible sources, to really, think critically about what's going on, and to form their own opinions. What you can do as a parent with a high schooler is you can watch movies together and or read books together that discuss about, the racism and the history in this country, and ways that we can move forward. So for example, one movie that's great is called Selma, which really, goes over the history of that part of the civil rights movement. That's a great way to sort of start prompting the conversations about what's going on. And so just to wrap it up, the key points are, you don't have to have all the answers to start the conversation. None of us have all the answers, but the key is to get started, to talk about what's going on, and to let your children know that this is a two-way street, that we can have that conversation about difficult and tough issues, and that it's really important, and this is really is a critical moment in our history, and that we want to make a change for the better. And for the parents, the last tip I'll say is, kids really do learn from their parents, and they imitate their parents. And so really, the saying actions speak louder than words is really true. Kids are always watching. They're watching what you're saying. They're watching how you talk about other people, all those things. So this is a wonderful time for our parents to also have a moment of self-reflection, to think about, what are the behaviors that my children are seeing, what are the attitudes that I'm projecting, especially when it comes to other people. What am I thinking, what am I saying, and what is the example that I'm leaving for my child? So I hope this helps you get the conversation started. Follow me at Dr. Pennicott, dr.pennicott, on Instagram. I'm going to be coming out with some resources this week for different books that you can read at different levels, and some movies that are helpful. And let's keep the conversation going. Have a great day and be blessed.